Welcome to live stream number 12. Sam Lay in Streamland. Let's see what Corky's doing. Looks like he's cooking in the kitchen. Good morning, Corky. Hi, good morning, Rick Francisco, Lynn Orman, and Alan Winkler.
We'll get back to these guys. Tell them at the end of at the end.
Yep, Corky will answer all of your questions at the end. And it's Larry Buss's birthday today.
This is a song that Sam wrote about where he lives and the neighbor across the alley.
By that we mean Sam Lay.
Sam Lay. The neighbor was making too much noise, and Sam was thinking, man, I'll show him. I'm going to move to Alabama. So Sam wrote this song. Some people cross the alley, they won't ever do right. They drink whiskey all day and raise a ruckus all night. I'm going back to Alabama. Back to Alabama. I'm going back to Alabama if they keep doing the things they do. Windy City was the place for me. Deep in the heart of Dixie is where I need to be. I'm going to Alabama, sweet home Alabama. I'm going to Alabama if they keep doing the things they do. Things would get better, but they only got worse. The fool had the nerve to throw a brick in a hearse. I'm going back to Alabama, Birmingham, Alabama. That's where he lived. I'm going back to Alabama if they keep doing the things they do. came to sweet home Chicago back in 1960. The icy winter man wasn't just whistling Dixie. I'm going back to Alabama. Going back to Alabama. I'm going back to Alabama. If they keep doing the things they do. I'm going back to Alabama. They keep doing the things they do. Yeah. Okay, come over here. I got to show you something. You ready?
You carried a gun, right?
A gun. I had 2 pistols in my lunch bucket at school.
When he walks on the bandstand, you know that you're in for something special.
He's not just sitting there keeping time. He's like part of the song. I mean, he would help paint the song. He's aware of the lyrics and what the singer's doing and what everybody around him's doing, and he's pulling it all together and giving it to you in a really good way.
Aha! And now next, this is Gary Malaber, and he's a drummer, a percussionist, backup singer, and co-composer for Steve Miller. He played on The Joker, Fly Like an Eagle. Fly like an eagle. I wish it was Fly Like an Angel. I'll tell you about that some other time. Produced and played on Van Morrison's albums. You've heard him a lot on Van Morrison and Bruce Springsteen albums, The Beach Boys, John Lennon, Barbra Streisand. And Sam and I toured with him in the Chicago Blues Reunion. So here's Gary Malaber.
Sam's a very special guy, and I think playing with people like Little Walter and Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and then Paul Butterfield and being part of Bob Dylan's music, that's 5 careers.
Sam's as much fun to watch as he is to listen to, and that's saying something because he's one of the great Chicago blues drummers, but he's also one of the great Chicago blues entertainers and band leaders.
Yes, and that's our friend Dick Sherman. And you could see Billy Branch playing harp. There he is behind Sam. Now we're next going to hear from Rollo, the bass player in Siegel Schwall, who is just the sweetest human being on earth, the most amazing guy.
He's got a certain style all his own. He doesn't just bring drums, he brings Sam Lake.
And then that's going to be followed by Nick Rivanites, who played with me and Harvey Mandel and Barry Goldberg and Gary Malaber, Rick Reed, Tracy Nelson, Marcy Levy, Marcella Detroit, all of us in the Chicago Blues Reunion. And Nick was the driving force in the Electric Flag with Mike Bloomfield, and he also wrote the blues hit Born in Chicago for Paul Butterfield. So here's Nick.
When he played a shuffle, boy, he was a master. He was a master at work. Sam was special. He had a certain attitude about himself that was special. He felt good about himself.
And there's Elvin Bishop. Now, Elvin, I love Elvin. He has this line. He says, there's 3 ages of man. There's youth, there's middle age, and there's you're looking good.
I think we're in the looking good.
Yeah, we're in the looking good. Here's Elvin. Here's Elvin.
He was the first guy in Chicago with a Beatles haircut, black or white. And it was kind of mind-blowing. The black guy comes in with that Beatles haircut, you know, he just came into the gig one night. There he was.
Yeah.
Ah, and there's Marcy saying, yep. So this is Marcy Levy, also known as Marcella Detroit, from Shakespeare's Sister, that big hit group in England, #1 hit. She wrote Lay Down Sally with Eric Clapton, who she toured with for 7 years. And our Marcy also played a few solo shows with me, duets, I guess. And she also did a lot of shows with Chamber Blues and recorded Lay Down Sally on the recording on Different Voices. You could look at the Different Voices recording. Yeah, so she's on there doing a really crazy classical version of Lay Down Sally. And Sam Lay is also on that album. So you can see that. And, okay, so let's see Marcy.
Sam is a real showman, you know. He comes complete with cape. Every time we do a gig, he's wearing this amazing suit, like this bright pink suit, and always has a cane.
Sam Lay was my original, I want to be him.
Iggy Pop. Thank you, Iggy. So I love that. As a lot of drummers that knew Sam and understood what he was doing would say, not that they wanted to play like Sam, but they wanted to be Sam. I love Iggy for saying that. And Iggy, by the way, when he was a young kid, used to go visit Sam and sleep on Sam's floor overnight.
It's kitchen floor.
Yeah, kitchen floor. Sam would take care of him. So that's Iggy.
My original fashion icon, more than any other single musical performer.
Sam had I think he called it a Super 8. It didn't have sound, it just took film.
I tell you what it was, I had what you call a brownie Hawkeye. Had a butterfly on the side of it.
You notice the picture in the background there? Looks a little familiar.
Of course.
Yeah.
That's
It's Muddy
James
and Little
Cotton,
yeah,
Maddie,
Cotton.
Little Walter, Geneva,
Yeah.
and Muddy Waters.
There's a picture there. By the way, this film trailer that we're completely chopping to death was by Starr Sutherland and John Anderson. The film is Sam Lay and Bluesland, and I think you get it on iTunes, but you could certainly look it up, and there's a Sam Lay and Bluesland website you can go to find it. So where are we? Here we go.
When it run down, you wind it back up. This is Jim Reed. He's a little tipsy, as usual. That's real blues, man. He can play blues low down on the rattlesnake belly on a wagon track.
There's Butterfield with Sam in the back, Little Walter, Muddy Waters, Elvin Bishop, Olive Big Johns. There's James Cotton.
Sam never saw things like in black and white. Sam was there to play the music. If the music was good and the band was cooking, that's all he cared about.
There's nobody in the world I'd rather work with than Sam. Sam just takes it to another place. He's just doing it because it feels right at that time. And, you know, of course, we all want to play that way. But Sam already does.
And Jim is probably the most honored drummer in the world. He's played with everybody, including George Harrison, John Lennon, even Ringo Starr. And he was considered the leading session drummer in America. So this is Jim.
I personally, as a drummer, I've had to play all kinds of different styles of music. And when I play the blues, I want to sound like Sam Lay. I want to feel like Sam Lay. I want to be Sam Lay at that time, period.
Like I say, no one wants to play like Sam. They want to be Sam. So I want to talk about Steve Smith. Steve Smith was a very renowned drummer from Journey. And he was rehearsing over in Evanston, here near Chicago, with Howard Levy. And I get a call from Steve. I had never met him before. And he says, I understand you know Sam Lay. I want to meet Sam Lay. It's really important for me and all drummers, any school drummer, to understand what Sam is doing, how he's doing it, why he's doing it. So please take me over to see Sam. And so that's another drummer telling us how much he loves Sam. You could go back to the end of the video.
You don't necessarily need to believe everything Sam tells you.
So that was Sam Lay and Bluesland trailer. And you could go to samlayandbluesland.com. Okay, so I'm going to read to you, this is story time now. You got to do a pirouette. So I'm going to read to you some excerpts of how I introduced Sam when Elvin and I introduced him to induct him into the Blues Hall of Fame in Memphis. I first met Sam when he played with the Paul Butterfield Band at Big John's in 1965. To this day, I never heard such a brilliant group as that four-piece. The whole band was driven by Sam, who was coming at you like four multicolored locomotives. They took the living blues out of Chicago neighborhoods. They took it on the road and also inspired major promoters to present the great blues masters to their amazed audiences. And when I say Sam was coming at you with like four locomotives, it's not that he was playing loud. It seemed like he was playing loud, but he was playing in full dynamic range, but he was playing such music that it just was irresistible and it came at you and felt very strong. As we know, Sam toured with a multitude of great Chicago blues masters, including Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Lightning Hopkins, James Cotton, and Little Walter. In fact, he lived with Little Walter. And he recorded over 40 of the iconic chess record hits. And all this introduced the world to the color blue, to Chicago blues. Now imagine this. Imagine the Rolling Stones, Mick Jagger and the Rolling Stones, in the early 60s in their little rooms across the sea, listening over and over and over to Sam's dynamic drumming on so many of the chess record hits like Howlin' Wolf's Killin' For. And on that fateful day at Newport, when Bob Dylan went electric and launched the folk rock revolution, guess who is backing Bob on the drums? And guess who drummed on Dylan's Highway 61, Bob Dylan's favorite album? It was Sam Lay, of course. So when Sam was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, along with Ringo Starr, and with Paul McCartney, Stevie Wonder, John Legend, Jerry Lee Lewis, Joan Jett, Miley Cyrus, Stephen Van Zandt, all standing there, they all knew about Sam's place in music history. They all knew how he was an essential figure in the blues rock explosion, the folk rock revolution, and even the English invasion. But many times we forget about the music itself. Sam briefly played with Siegel Schwall in 1969, and we didn't begin our 30-year stint until 1987. So back in 1971, think back, 1971, Sam was not part of my life. In fact, I was steeped in this mission to bring Chicago blues flavor to symphony orchestra. Picture me in San Francisco surrounded by 100 classical musicians. a world-renowned maestro, an opera house filled with classical music lovers, and the exclusively classical label Deutsche Grammophon waiting to record this for history. So Sam was the last thing on my mind on that day in 1971 in the Opera House when I was approached by Bren Stilley of Rolling Stone magazine. And of course he asked me, "Who's your main musical influence?" Here's a direct quote from that article called, in Rolling Stone of course, called Siegel Schwall Plays the Opera, Rolling Stone 1971. Quote, "Corky says his main influence was Sam Lay, the drummer with the Paul Butterfield Blues Group. He's the best drummer in the world," says Corky. "The best drummer of any sort I've ever heard. He has taste, he has ideas of his own. Most of my concepts of the blues are things he showed me." And that's literally written in stone back in 1971. And here's part of a telegram Bob Dylan sent to Sam when he heard Sam had won the Grammy's Legends and Heroes Award from Bob Dylan. "Congratulations, it's good to be recognized. It's so well deserved. You are second to none. Your flawless musicianship and unsurpassing timing. Maestro with the sticks and brushes." I played with most of the famous blues drummers around, but no one uplifted my own playing like Sam. Other musicians that had the honor of playing with Sam all claimed that Sam took them to musical places they had never been before. And by the way, if anyone has any questions or comments, after this is over, after our stream is over, I will go back and spend the time answering all your comments. So thank you guys. So Sam didn't focus on the groove and the time like other drummers. His focus was inside the muse. He rollicked within it with ornamentations and colors and dynamics that could have only come from a joyful musical genius in tune with the reason why we play music in the first place. Though Sam's mark on the history of American music is certainly remarkable, it is what he brought to the world in purely musical terms that is nothing less than profound. That's a Sam I know. And a quick story before I close here. Not too long ago, we were playing in a festival and there were a bunch of drummers around. And I never heard...
The shoes.
No, I'm not going to say.
Bob Dylan story.
I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm going to. That's how I'm going to end.
Okay.
My director, that's how. Okay. So there were these three drummers there. And I never heard Sam do this before. But Sam said, "Hey, let me show you something. I'm going to show you some tricks and show you exactly how I'm doing what I'm doing." And they walked over to him, and all of a sudden they got distracted and walked away and never heard a word Sam said. That was the last time there was an opportunity for some drummers to learn from Sam, and Sam explaining it to them. And then a couple years before that, we were on stage with a couple drummers, and Sam wanted one of the drummers to accompany him rather than Sam to play. But Sam was showing the lick. "Here's what I'm doing." Okay. And someone said, "Hey," to this other drummer, "can you do this?" The other drummer was a very schooled, very renowned drummer and said, "Are you kidding? Of course I could do that. Duh." And so he sat down at the drums and played the licks, which sounded nothing like Sam, and everyone on the stage, the lighting people, everyone, started laughing out loud. So that's Sam Lay. So I want to finish with a story, which I used to tell all the time when Sam played with us. Sam was invited to attend a concert at the United Center with Bob Dylan. Bob Dylan invited him. From the stage, Bob Dylan invited Sam backstage. "Sam Lay, the greatest blues drummer in the world, please come backstage." So Sam goes backstage, and when he comes back out,
a whole bunch of audience members surround Sam. And they go, Sam, what's it like? What's it like to get to hang with such a superstar? And Sam responded, I guess Bob was tickled. Well, that's our Sam Lay. If you want to know about the history of the blues, Sam Lay is the guy to talk to. He knows it because he was there.
You don't necessarily need to believe everything Sam tells you.
Hey, Sam, don't never stop playing, man. Keep doing what you're doing. I'm James Scott, and I said so, and I mean it.